How to build a sustainable movement practice for life. It usually begins the same way. A decision, a fresh burst of motivation, a promise to yourself that this time will be different. You are going to move more, stretch more, walk more, take better care of your body. And for a while, it works. You feel good, you feel focused, you feel proud of yourself for finally starting. But then life happens. A busy week, a poor night of sleep, a sore joint, a schedule change, a few missed days. And slowly, almost quietly, the routine begins to fade. Not because you did not care, not because you were lazy, not because movement stopped mattering, but because the plan was built on motivation, not on sustainability. And that is where many people get discouraged. They think the problem is discipline. They think they failed because they could not keep up with a routine that looked good on paper. But here is the truth. Sustainable movement is not about intensity. It is not about willpower. And it is not about forcing yourself into a plan that does not fit your real life. It is about design. Because after 60, the goal is not just to exercise harder. The goal is to build a relationship with movement that can stay with you. Not for 30 days. Not until motivation fades. Not until the weather changes or life gets busy. But for years. Because movement after 60 is not only about fitness. It is about circulation. It is about balance. It is about protecting muscle. It is about preserving mobility. It is about keeping the joints nourished, the brain engaged, and the nervous system more resilient. It is about independence. And the body does not gain those benefits from occasional heroic effort. It gains them from regular use. So in this episode, we're going to talk about how to build a movement practice that actually lasts. Not a perfect routine, not a rigid program, a practice. Something flexible, something repeatable, something forgiving enough to survive real life. Because the best movement plan is not the one that looks impressive. It is the one you can keep doing. Part 1. Movement is not the same as exercise. Let's clear up something important first. Exercise is structured. Movement is life. Exercise is the workout, the routine, the walk planned for 30 minutes, the strength session, the stretching block on the calendar. Movement is broader than that. Movement is standing up from a chair, reaching overhead, turning your spine, walking across a parking lot, carrying groceries, getting down to the floor and back up, climbing stairs, shifting position, using your body throughout the day. And that distinction matters. Because many people think that if they are not doing a formal workout, then movement does not count. That is a mistake. Your body does not only care about exercise sessions, it cares about how often it is being used. And after 60, that becomes even more important. Because the body responds incredibly well to regular signals. Joints benefit from motion because movement helps circulate synovial fluid, the natural lubricant that nourishes cartilage surfaces. Muscles stay more responsive when they are recruited often. Balance improves when the nervous system keeps practicing coordination. Circulation improves when the body changes position regularly instead of staying still for hours. In other words, your body is built for repetition, not punishment, not all or nothing effort, regular use. That is why returning to basic human movement patterns often matters more than chasing complicated workouts. Walk, stand, reach,
rotate, bend, balance. These simple patterns are the language the body understands. And when the body stops hearing that language often enough, things begin to fade. Stiffness increases, muscles weaken, confidence drops. Movement starts to feel harder than it should. So, if you want a sustainable movement practice, the first shift is this. Stop thinking only in terms of exercise. Start thinking in terms of daily movement exposure. Part 2. What changes after 60? This is where honesty matters. After 60, the old model of push hard, rest later often stops working well. Recovery can take longer. Muscle repair may be slower. Joints may be more sensitive to overload. Tissues may be less elastic. Sleep may be lighter. And the body often becomes less forgiving of boom and bust patterns. that does not mean you are fragile. It means the body now responds better to consistency than chaos. Research on aging and physical function keeps circling back to the same truth. Regular movement supports muscle maintenance, metabolic health, balance, circulation, and cognitive function, while inactivity accelerates decline. The issue is not age alone. The issue is disuse layered on top of age. That is why intensity is often overrated. A hard session once in a while does not create the same benefit as steady movement repeated week after week. After 60, frequent moderate input often beats occasional ambitious effort. That is not a downgrade. That is strategy. Because sustainable movement works with the body's biology as it is now. It respects recovery. It respects adaptation. It respects the fact that the nervous system likes rhythm. And rhythm is what makes movement become part of life, instead of an event you keep trying to restart. Part 3. Why most people fall off. Let's say this plainly. Most people do not stop moving because they are lazy. They stop because the plan was too expensive for real life, too intense, too time-consuming, too rigid, too disconnected from how their days actually work. Sometimes the plan asks for too much energy up front. Sometimes it depends on motivation being high every day. Sometimes it feels like punishment instead of support. Sometimes progress is too vague to feel rewarding. And sometimes one missed day turns into a shame spiral that makes people avoid starting again. That is the part nobody talks about enough. A routine can fail even when the person is sincere, because if the design is bad, consistency breaks. And the older we get, the more this matters. Not because older adults are less capable, but because life usually gets more layered. There may be work, family, travel, grandchildren, fatigue, responsibilities, pain, flare-ups, appointments, sleep disruptions. So a sustainable movement practice has to be realistic enough to survive ordinary life. That means it cannot rely on ideal conditions. It has to work on good days and imperfect days. Part 4. From routine to practice. This is the turning point. Instead of building a rigid routine, build a practice. A routine sounds fixed. A practice sounds alive. A routine often says, do it exactly this way, or it does not count. A practice says, keep returning. That difference changes everything, because a sustainable movement practice is flexible enough to adjust, small enough to begin, simple enough to repeat, forgiving enough to recover from missed days, meaningful enough to feel worth keeping. A practice removes the perfection trap. It allows for different levels. Some days you may walk for 30 minutes. Some days you may only stretch for 8. Some days you may do light strength work. Some days the win is simply getting out of the chair more often and doing one lap around the block. Still counts. That is not lowering the bar. That is protecting continuity. And continuity is where the real benefits live. Part 5. The body thrives on frequency. Of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that longer sessions automatically matter more. They do not always. The body often responds more favorably to frequency than to occasional big efforts. A 10 to 20-minute walk most days can improve circulation, insulin sensitivity, joint nutrition, mood, and cardiovascular conditioning more reliably than one oversized session done once in a while. Light strength work performed consistently can help maintain muscle protein synthesis signals, support tendon function, and preserve confidence in movement patterns. Mobility work done regularly can help the nervous system stay familiar with range of motion, which often matters as much as tissue length itself. This is why the phrase, "a little often," is not weak advice. It is biologically smart advice. Your joints like repeated nourishment. Your muscles like repeated signals. Your balance systems like repeated practice. Your habits like repeated cues. Frequency reduces friction. And when friction is lower, consistency rises. So when building a sustainable practice, ask less often. How much can I do? Ask more often. What can I repeat? Part 6. Start small enough to win. Most movement plans fail at the front door. They ask for too much to get started. 30 minutes, An hour, a full routine, a perfect block of time. The right clothes, the right mindset. That is too many barriers. The brain does not like high-friction starts. And after 60, if energy is inconsistent or stiffness is present, giant starts become even less realistic. So make the entry point smaller. A 10-minute walk, 5 minutes of mobility, a few sit-to-stands from a chair, a short balance practice while waiting for the kettle. Gentle stretches before bed. Starting small is not a compromise. It is a way of building reliability. Because once the body starts moving, it often becomes easier to keep going. And even when it does not, a small session still preserves the identity of being someone who moves. That matters psychologically. Success builds momentum. Repeated success builds trust. And trust is what turns movement from something you should do into something you simply do. Part 7. Anchor movement to real-life motivation is unreliable. Rhythm is better. One of the easiest ways to make movement more sustainable is to anchor it to something that already exists in your day. After morning coffee, go for a short walk. Before lunch, do a few mobility drills. After dinner, take a gentle lap outside. While brushing your teeth, practice standing on one leg near a counter for support. When commercials come on, stand up and move. This works because habits are easier to repeat when they are attached to a cue. The cue removes negotiation. You are not asking every day, "Should I do it?" The moment itself reminds you. And once movement is woven into the day, it starts feeling less like a project and more like part of who you are. That is the sweet spot. Part 8. Variety without complexity. The body needs different things. Strength, mobility, balance, endurance, that coordination. But that does not mean your plan needs to become complicated. A sustainable movement practice can stay very simple. Walking most days for circulation, stamina, and mood. Light strength 2 or 3 times a week for muscle, bone, and function. Mobility, or stretching, most days for ease of movement. Balance practice several times a week for confidence and fall prevention. That is enough, not flashy. Enough. And honestly, this is where a lot of people get lost. They think a good plan has to be advanced. It does not. It has to be repeatable. The body does not care if the plan is trendy. It cares whether the signals keep coming. Part 9. The role of identity. Here is where this gets deeper than scheduling. Lasting movement is not just a habit issue. It is an identity issue. If movement always feels like a task you are trying to force, you will always have to negotiate with yourself. But when movement becomes part of how you see yourself, the resistance changes. Instead of saying, "I need to exercise," you begin to think, "I am someone who moves every day." That one shift matters more than it sounds. Identity shapes behavior. It influences small choices. Take the stairs or not. Walk after dinner or not. Stand up now or keep sitting. Stretch before bed or skip it. When movement becomes part of who you are, you stop waiting for a perfect mood. You return to it because it fits your self-image, and that is one of the quiet secrets behind consistency. Part 10. What to do when you miss days. This part matters almost more than the plan itself, because everyone misses days. Everyone. The difference between people who stay consistent and people who fall off long-term is not perfection. It is recovery. Missed days are normal. Shame is optional. If you miss a day, come back the next day. If you miss a week, restart with something tiny. No punishment. No, I have to make up for it. No turning one interruption into a full retreat. A good rule is simple. Never miss twice if you can help it. And if you do miss twice, come back anyway. Because the habit is not broken unless you decide it is. This matters because all or nothing thinking destroys more movement practices than aging ever does. Part 11. Listen to the body, but do not hand it. The steering wheel, your body gives feedback. Stiffness, fatigue, soreness, low energy. These signals matter, but they are not always stop signs. Sometimes they are adjustment signs. Low energy may mean do a shorter walk. Sore joints may mean warm up more slowly. Fatigue may mean mobility instead of strength that day. A stressful day may mean gentle movement is exactly what the nervous system needs. Listening to the body does not mean quitting at the first sign of discomfort. It means adapting without abandoning the practice. That is maturity in movement, not forcing, not folding, adjusting. Part 12. What happens when you get this right? When movement becomes consistent, the results are often quieter than people expect at first. Your joints feel more fluid. Your mornings feel less stiff. Your balance becomes more stable. Your mood steadies. Walking feels easier. Confidence returns. You stop feeling like your body is always one step behind you. These changes are not always dramatic in a week, but over months and years, they become life-changing. Because sustainable movement does not just improve fitness, it preserves function, and function is freedom. The ability to get up from the floor, carry bags, travel, climb stairs, keep up with life. Trust your body in ordinary moments. That is the long game. So, no, you do not need a perfect plan. You do not need a punishing plan. You do not need a plan that impresses other people. You need one that stays with you, one that fits real life, one that respects your body after 60, one that allows for flexibility, missed days, lower energy days, and still keeps you moving forward. Because the best movement practice is not the hardest one. It is the one that continues. And over time, that quiet consistency becomes strength. It becomes stability. It becomes confidence. It becomes independence. Not through bursts of effort, through rhythm, through repetition, through a body that keeps being invited to stay alive, capable, and in motion. Because the goal is not to do more for a few weeks. The goal is to keep going for life. Stay re-inspired.
I hope this video brought you value and re-inspired you. If so, please subscribe, hit like, and leave a comment. And if anybody you know could use a little re-inspiration, please send it to them. Thank you so much for watching.